Chapter 7 School Days. A few weeks after I arrived in America, Mom took me to visit the nearby elementary school to get me acquainted with it. It was early morning and the school day was beginning. We pulled up to the large red brick school building. There were lots of kids gathered around the front entrance, and I began to shake. Tatyana, everything will be all right. Mom tried to comfort me as I watched all the kids heading into the school. Please, Mommy, don't leave me here, I pleaded. It took a while for Mom to figure out that I thought she was taking me back to an orphanage. I hadn't seen so many children in one place since I had left baby house number 13. Oops. We returned later on the same afternoon as school was letting out. Look, Tatyana, see all the children? They're going home to their families. Kids were streaming out of the building, running, laughing, and hugging their parents. We went inside and down the clean, brightly lit hallways, peering into rooms filled with small wooden desks. Toys and books lined the shelves. Pictures and maps covered the walls. I was still a little worried, but it didn't feel like an orphanage, so maybe it wouldn't be so bad. By autumn, so much had changed. I was more comfortable in my new home and had made some new friends in the neighborhood during the summer. They told me all about school. I was now excited about going there and the possibility of making more friends. On the first day of first grade, Mom came with me. This is Miss Salmons. Tatyana, can you say hello? Miss Salmons smiled. Hello, Tatyana. Hello, I replied, looking around the room. Kids my age were filing into the classroom. Some stared, some smiled. Some ran past me and into their seats. I sat in the back of the class at a large table where I could easily sit in my wheelchair. I liked that I could look across the classroom and watch the other kids. Each morning started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone stood next to their desk and crossed their hands over their hearts. I would wheel my chair around to the front of my table and face the flag, place my hand on my chest, and follow along. I pledge allegiance to the, I mumbled, each day picking up one or two more words from the pledge. Miss Salmons taught us to read and write. We sang songs, colored, and finger painted. All these activities came easily to the other kids, but often boggled me. I could barely hold a pencil or crayon in my hand and had only just learned to write my name. I couldn't tell time on a clock, and I didn't know how to cut with scissors. Once a week, a special teacher came in to help me speak better English. She showed me flashcards with pictures of common everyday objects. A is for apple. B is for banana. C is for cat. D is for dog. Now repeat after me, she instructed. I was easily confused. Only a few months before, apples and bananas were anything but common to me. And as for cats and dogs, all I knew were the mangy mutts that scared me at the orphanage. Okay, class, can anyone tell me about Washington, D.C.? Miss Simmons asked. That is where the president lives, someone shouted. In the White House, added another. And why is it important? It's the capital of our country, one kid answered. And don't forget small letters, too, I blurted out, proudly trying to participate. But I had confused the nation's capital with capital letters. I was still learning. At recess, we all went out to play in the schoolyard. There was a blacktop for jumping rope, foursquare, and hopscotch, and at the far end, a playground with a jungle gym and swings. Not knowing anybody to play with, I headed for the jungle gym, pulling myself onto the bars and climbing around like a little monkey. After a while, I plopped myself into a swing. Hi. What you doing? Asked a sandy-haired girl, staring inquisitively at me and smiling. I was trying to push myself back and forth on the swing, but mostly I was twisting around a lot. Not having any control of my legs made it hard to swing properly. Hello, I said and smiled back as I rocked and twisted. Need help with that? Let me help. She stepped behind me and gave me a gentle push. She kept pushing until I had enough momentum to rock myself and really get swinging. Then she jumped onto the swing next to me and began to swing until we were both laughing and screaming, going higher and higher. Tatyana, be careful. Come down off of there. It was the playground monitor, a plump lady who made sure nobody hurt themselves or was roughhousing during recess. You two should know better, she scolded. We slowed to a stop, and I pulled myself back into my wheelchair as the bell rang. Sorry, we both said. We headed back to class. I didn't like to cause problems with the teachers, but we really weren't doing anything wrong, I thought. I'm Kessie, the girl said with a smile as we went back to our desk. It was hard to pay attention in class that afternoon. The feeling of flying excited me. I wanted to sneak back out and try to push myself even higher on the swings. Keshi and I continued to meet at recess to play. I continued to disregard the playground monitor's warning and scrambled around on the playground equipment. After many days of chasing and scolding me, the monitor reported me to the school principal, who called my mom. Miss McFadden, we're worried about your daughter, the principal said with concern. She keeps wanting to climb up the equipment on the playground. Yes, and is there something wrong with that? Mom replied matter-of-factly. Well, she shouldn't. Really? And why is that? Well, something might happen, she replied. I'm sorry, but I don't see the problem if Tatyana wants to play on the playground. But Miss McFadden, she might hurt herself. Yes, perhaps she might. But what about the other children? They might fall and hurt themselves too, right? But the principal paused. Look, she has the same right to hurt herself as anyone else, Mom explained. Of course, I don't want her to get hurt, but I do want her to be treated just like any other child. In the end, the principal agreed to let me play where I wanted. Keshi became my new best friend. She would come over to play after school, and we continued our antics on the small plastic playset in the backyard. Keshi liked to get on the ground and move the way I did, dragging herself around the yard and in the house. Sometimes I'd climb onto the kitchen counter to get to the high shelf where the cookie jar was kept, which was something Keshi couldn't do, even standing up.